The story of the crucifixion, right? But what if we could see it through the eyes of someone who was actually there? And I don't mean a human. I mean an angel. That's the journey we're taking today, based on the book Memoir of an Angel. All right, so let's try to get our heads around this. The quote on screen really says it all. Energy, time, and space matter not in my existence. Our narrator is an angel. For him, our reality, it's just, a temporary assignment. Imagine being able to see all of human history not as a timeline, but as a single complete picture. That's the perspective we're starting with.
So meet our eyewitness, an angel you can call Joe. And right away, he tells us this isn't just about a historical event. No, this is the final battle, the climax of a spiritual war that's been raging since the very beginning. He's basically giving us a backstage pass to see what was really going on, just behind the curtain of what humans could see.
Okay, so where does the action start? Well, for us humans, the clock says it's 33 AD, near Jerusalem. But for the angels, this is the moment, the one they've been waiting for through millennia of prophecy. Joe says legions of them were stationed there, ready for the event the entire universe had been holding its breath for.
And things really kick into high gear in the Garden of Gethsemane. I mean, this is where the pressure on Jesus becomes almost unbearable. And for the angels, this is where their central conflict comes into sharp focus. Everything in them wants to intervene, but their orders are to obey.
So Jesus is praying, and he's in such agony that his sweat is like drops of blood. Our narrator, Joe, tells us he was the one summoned to give Jesus supernatural strength. But even as he's doing that, the main order for all of them was crystal clear. Stand, down, do not interfere no matter what. Can you imagine how hard that must have been?
And then the mob shows up. Now, to the disciples, it just looked like soldiers and leaders with torches. But the angels, they saw something else. They saw their own fallen brothers, demons, escorting this mob, whispering poison in their ears. Joe describes their presence as a literal stench in the spiritual atmosphere. This next part is just wow. It shows the raw power hidden inside that human body. They ask for Jesus of Nazareth, and he replies with just 2 words, I am. But he's not just saying his name. He's declaring his eternal, divine identity. And the book says the power of those 2 words literally threw the entire mob, soldiers and all, to the ground. And all this time while this is happening, you have to remember what's being held in reserve. Look at this, more than 12 legions of angels. Just to put that in perspective, a legion is about 6,000. So we're talking about a celestial army of over 72,000 powerful beings just standing by. And Joe says every single one of them was just straining at the leash, desperate to act. And Jesus himself says as much to Peter, right? Peter pulls out a sword, ready to fight, and Jesus basically tells him, put that away. Don't you realize I could call down that entire army right now? He reminds Peter, this isn't a fight you win with swords. This is a spiritual war, and it has to be won in a different way. So, why? Why did they have to stand down? Why was this path of suffering the only way? To get the answer, we have to go back, way back. Joe takes us to the very beginning of this war, to another garden. The book presents these 2 gardens as perfect bookends to the story of humanity. You have the Garden of Eden, where one act of disobedience broke everything, and now you have the Garden of Gethsemane, where one act of perfect obedience is about to fix it all. And Joe remembers it all perfectly. He watched Lucifer, disguised as a serpent, whisper that classic lie. You can have it all, just reach for it. And with that one bad choice, that perfect relationship between humanity and its creator just snapped. A void opened up, and fear and shame rushed in to fill it. And according to Joe, fixing that broken connection, that's what this whole thing is about.
All right, so let's fast forward to the climax. We're at Golgotha now, the place of the skull, where this invisible spiritual war is about to hit its terrifying peak.
It's the 6th hour, high noon. Jesus is on the cross. And then something really strange happens. A deep, unnatural darkness falls over the whole land, and it stays that way for 3 hours. This was no solar eclipse. This was something else entirely.
So, what was going on? Why did the world go dark? From a human point of view, it's just a bizarre, unexplained event. But from an angel's perspective, the answer is terrifyingly simple, and it shows you just how heavy this moment truly was. Okay, so here's the angel's eye view.
The darkness wasn't just darkness. It was a physical sign of a spiritual event. At that exact moment, every sin ever committed, past, present, and future, was placed onto Jesus. And because God the Father is pure holiness, he literally cannot look at sin, so he had to turn away. And what happens when the source of all light in the universe turns his back? Well, all you're left with is darkness.
And that's when he cried out those words, my God, why have you forsaken me?" In that pitch blackness, carrying the weight of all that sin, he felt that separation from the Father for the very first time in all of eternity. He was completely, devastatingly alone.
But then, after those 3 hours, he speaks again. And Joe makes it clear this wasn't the weak voice of a man dying. This was a shout of victory. The voice of God himself echoing across creation with 3 words that changed everything. It is finished. The debt was paid, the battle was won. And the second he said it, creation itself reacted. An earthquake literally split rocks apart. And in the temple, that huge, thick curtain separating people from the holiest place, it was torn in 2, from the top all the way to the bottom. The barrier between God and humanity was gone.
So the price has been paid, the war is won. But this isn't the end of the story. No, this is the beginning of a new one. The final act is about to happen, the ultimate checkmate. And our angelic narrator gives us a front row seat. You've got a sealed tomb, guarded by some of Rome's best soldiers. For 2 nights, nothing happens. Then, on the morning of the 3rd day, it's time. Joe describes another angel descending, a violent earthquake, and the massive stone just rolling away. The raw power of it all was so intense that these hardened Roman soldiers just fainted, collapsing like they were dead. And then, according to his own account, it was Joe, our narrator, who appeared to the women who had come to the tomb. And he's the one who gets to deliver the news. The message that turned all that grief into pure shock and set the course for the rest of human history.
So what does all this mean? Seeing this story through an angel's eyes really changes things, doesn't it? It pushes us to see beyond just the historical facts. Imagine if you could have seen it all. The legions of angels waiting, the forces of darkness being defeated, the actual weight of all human sin being lifted. You'd realize this wasn't just one man's death. It was an eternal victory. And it kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other epic battles are going on right now, just outside of what we can see?